computer was a beautiful object, something you want to look at and have in your home. And what if, instead of it being in the right hands, it was in everyone's hands?
We'd be talking about the most tectonic shift in the status quo since
Ever.
As much as this is going to sound like it's a zeitgeist movie because Apple is so phenomenally important or like so entwined in our lives, as is so many sort of tech companies, and that it's, you know, it is what it is, and that Steve Jobs was the quote-unquote creator of Apple. What's really amazing about this film, I think, is probably less some of the zeitgeist things, which may be part of its failing, than it is these performances that Danny Boyle gets and the way the camera sort of keeps us engaged in a story that's mostly about, you know, in a lot of ways, engineering and marketing. Michael Fassbender, unlike, you know, Ashton Kutcher, looks nothing like Steve Jobs. Doesn't have the mop of hair or anything like that. But he is an extraordinary actor. We all know that already. But here, I think he really just disappears into the hubris and genius of Steve Jobs. And that is not a pleasant place to be, as far as I can tell. He is not a nice guy.
You were saying things about the Apple II and the way you were treating the team.
Was. You get a free pass for life. I gotta get back on stage. We got like 2 minutes of rehearsal time left.
Do you understand how condescending that just was?
What?
I mean, maybe you don't.
I don't want to see you get dragged off in
I get a free pass for life from you. You give out the pass. You give them to me.
You're gonna have a stroke, little buddy.
What did you do? What did you do? Why has Lisa not heard of me?
Man, how many fourth graders have heard of you?
You can't write code. You're not an engineer. You're not a designer. You can't put a hammer to a nail. I built the circuit board. The graphical interface was stolen from Xerox PARC. Jeff Raskin was the leader of the Mac team before you threw him off his own project. Everything, someone else designed the box. So how come 10 times in a day, I read Steve Jobs as a genius? What do you do?
I play the orchestra. And you're a good musician. You sit right there. You're the best in your row.
Seth Rogen plays Steve Wozniak, who is really an engineer, and there's some great moments where you're just like, really, what did you make, right? This is the world we live in. If you're sort of saying a zeitgeist thing, I would say, oh, that's the interesting thing. It's like, what did you make? We are living in a time where sometimes what people make isn't as important as like how they sort of pitched it to the rest of us and how we bought into it, and that's complicated, right? That's something we should leave, I think, having this fairly complicated feeling about. But mostly this is a film of really fine performances, and there's always something satisfying about that. Michael Fassbender is amazing in this.
She's been acting weird for months. She's turned on me.
Fix it.
What the?
Fix it, Steve.
Take it easy.
Fix it, or I quit. How about that? I quit and you never see me again. How about that?
Tell me what's wrong with you this morning.
What's been wrong with me for 19 years? I've been a witness, and I tell you, I've been complicit. I love you, Steve. You know how much. I love that you don't care how much money a person makes. You care what they make. But what you make isn't supposed to be the best part of you. When you're a father, that's what's supposed to be the best part of you. And it's caused me 2 decades of agony, Steve, that it is for you.
Danny Boyle is such a kinetic filmmaker in some ways. I mean, he's able to do certain things with action, and I don't mean like as an action filmmaker, I just mean within the context of Slumdog Millionaire. There's just stuff that's very visceral and exciting about him as a filmmaker. So to do this film that's really about a corporation and a corporate culture, and yes, with a protean figure at its center, is a different thing for him, and I think he's pulled it off. This is a very smart movie. And it's going to be compared with, in good ways and probably not fair ways, to David Fincher's A Social Network. That's all there is to it. And together, that would be an awesome and draining double bill. But really awesome, but draining.